Hello, Turkey fans. This is another broadcast by Real Turkey Channel, and the presenter is Atilla Yeşilara. We are going to increase our personnel, and you're going to watch videos by new faces and hopefully with real footage from Turkey soon. This is our New Year's promise. Today, I want to talk about our president's aversion to social media networks, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. I don't know. Those are the ones I've heard of. There are many others, I'm sure. Turkey passed a social media reform law. You know, everything that plans to ban something is called a reform in authoritarian countries. And it orders large social media companies to appoint a representative and an office in Turkey to separate their servers for the Turkish conversation or for Turkish traffic, as well as to comply with the general rules of Turkish media censorship. Of course, uh, at first sight, this makes sense because the first issue of uh, domiciling, appointing a representative is required in many countries to solve tax disputes. As you know, these large social media companies are domiciled, that's headquarters in some, unheard of country in the Caribbean, and they pay very little taxes. So Turkey is right in demanding that, if they're getting advertising from Turkey, they pay Turkish taxes. But the rest is aimed at censorship. Uh, Large social media companies are not going to uh, separate their servers and keep separate servers in Turkey simply because it will be eavesdropped or very private data can be stolen or required by the courts to be turned over to the government or the legal authorities, in which case the said social media network would be responsible for breach of privacy. And they don't want to appoint a legal representative for another reason, because we put people in prison. So far, none has complied with the law. So, as a first remedy, each were penalized $5 million, up to $750,000. They didn't respond. As a second remedy, they were penalized $30 million per social media network. That is roughly $4 million. Again, they shrugged. And the next step to be instituted in at least in the first 4 months, in the next 3 months, is reducing their bandwidth. First offense, 10%, second offense, 50%, third offense, 90% bandwidth reduction, which means essentially social media companies either comply with the new Turkish law or they are banned in Turkey. Obviously, that's a very draconian solution to a small problem. So one seeks other objectives or intentions about the purpose of this law. And the simple reason is that Mr. Erdogan wishes to control social media, as he has effectively done to mainstream media, that is, newspapers, magazines, as well as TV broadcasters. Why? Why does he care? Well, information is power. If you can control the information that people receive, you can shape their perceptions, their ideas, their thinking, their opinions. This is true in politics, this is true in economics, this is true in advertising. And Mr. Erdogan sensed from the early days of his administration that for him to establish a long-term bond between himself and the voters, two things are necessary. A very comprehensive welfare system. Everybody ought to be paid something to make sure they become clients of the party. He established that. I mean, it's fraying at the edges because the government is running out of money, but Turkey is one of the most extensive social welfare networks, feeding 15 million poor, needy, and disadvantaged citizens. The sums are small, but we're not a rich country. The second thing is that he really needs to control the public debate about topics that are important to politics and that affect the perception of the voters about political parties. Turkish media, battles are really a fascinating story, which would take me, you know, a few hours to explain. But essentially, if you put something in your newspaper that didn't please Mr. Erdogan or AKP, you didn't receive any advertising. Second, of course, there was dirty smear campaigns in pro-AKP press. And if that didn't suffice, then the tax authority entered the scene and levied immense penalties on media groups which didn't obey Mr. Erdogan's orders. I mean, I'm talking about one media group, which I shall not name, which has received a tax penalty of 3 billion liras. At those days exchange rates, that was roughly $1.5 billion. It would have bankrupted. At the end, the person ended up selling his entire media empire to a crony of AKP. So now there's an opposition press. Turkey has free broadcasting, both on satellite and on air, as well as on digital platforms. We have something like 150 channels. Of those, only 3 can be identified as opposition channels. In terms of the press, out of total circulation, 90% goes to pro-AKP newspapers. But the strategy succeeded so much that it has failed. That all of the TV stations in Turkey and all Turkish newspapers started printing the same stuff. In the old Soviet Empire days, there was a state newspaper called Pravda, and we called that Pravda journalism. It only published what the Central Committee or Communist Party wanted it to publish. And this is how the Turkish media became. As a result, newspaper circulation dropped by 50% over 2 years, and no one is watching mainstream TV channels. Of course, there is also generational effect. I mean, younger people are migrating to social media, watching content over YouTube, Netflix. I'm sure there are 100 more venues that you know better than I do. But Mr. Erdogan's strategy failed simply because the people he wanted to reach, the young people, the urban intellectuals, the wealthy people, high income classes, are no longer watching the channels and reading the newspapers that he controls. So social media is next. If he can control social media, he can reestablish his single-handed dominance over information. If he doesn't, he will probably lose the next elections. It's that important because Turkey is one of those few countries where false news is prepared, disseminated by the state and pro-AKP media. There is no way you can find out the truth about Turkey. This is also true if you do a Google search. If you go through the first 5 pages, you would see it's dominated by Sabah Daily and AA, Anatolian News Agency, both of which are extensions of AK Party, essentially. And somehow Ekatemerini from Greece, just gets in once in a while. I don't know how they do it, but essentially, even in Google, they established a dominant position so that even foreigners who are interested in Turkey don't hear the truth. This is a key issue for the next election simply because the 16 to 30-year-old generation is going to make up roughly 20% of the entire electorate. Moreover, Internet penetration and time spent on internet is increasing tremendously, even though internet connection fees are awfully expensive in purchasing power terms. Turks are great aficionados of anything that's on the internet. And internet is still free. It cannot be censored. So Mr. Erdogan's uh, solution to that problem is either to control content or to ban them. How will this battle end? It will end badly for Mr. Erdogan because social media is not like the press or TV broadcasts, which are, by necessity few. I mean, what, 50 newspapers, 150 news channels, easy to control them, easy to censor them. In YouTube, I suppose there are at least 1,000, 2,000 videos being loaded, uploaded from Turkey only. And when it comes to websites which publish true or correct unbiased information, you can replicate them at very little cost. For instance, there was a pro-opposition website, very popular, huge traffic, called Oda TV. It's been banned for 3 months for reasons that no one understands. So it opened Oda TV 2, Oda TV 3, Oda TV 4. This is what Erdogan doesn't understand. I mean, you can take down my content, but I immediately establish a new channel and put up the similar content with a different title. And you really don't have the manpower or the artificial intelligence to filter through all this content to censor everything that doesn't appeal to you. That's the problem that the likes of Facebook and Twitter are experiencing. Even if they wanted to take out all the violent, abusive, or hate-oriented content, they really don't have the means to do so. Algorithms don't do the job. They give too many false negatives. And humans, well, you know, the humans can only watch so many videos. Well, how about if he bans social media networks? Well, he won't dare, simply because he will lose votes. Uh, Turks will go crazy without their YouTube, or without their Twitter, or without their Instagram. Also, there is a commercial aspect. I mean, that's a $1 billion business already and growing by the day. Most importantly, there's something called VPN. I use one, and a lot of Turks who want to watch internet use it because there are more than 70,000 websites which are banned. A lot of them contain pornographic material. Again, I don't see why they should ban it. But there are also thousands with political content or economic content that publish stuff that AKP doesn't want you to hear or see. And as I've said, Turks are using VPNs, and I'm sure there are thousands of other methods to bypass the Turkish internet trunk to access the global internet and find whatever you want to find. So he will fail. And I think the next election will be fought on the internet, on YouTube, on Instagram, on TikTok, on wherever political messages can be disseminated. The problem for AKP is it already tried to dominate the social media by its paid troll army. Yes, AKP retains 7,000 to 11,000 professional trollers who create artificial content. They help things go trending in YouTube or in Twitter. But they're a complete failure because all they do is disseminate the AKP message. They are not independent. And social media people are extremely savvy. They understand BS content and they don't respond to it. Twitter at the end got tired of it and I think wiped off 8,000 accounts, something like that. So, there is really no way to control the social media. This will go down as another shameful incident of of censorship in Turkish history. And it just goes to show you the lengths Mr. Erdogan would go to win elections, which is kind of funny because at the same time he's talking about human rights reforms and judicial reforms. The essence of these reforms is free speech, freedom of assembly, freedom of thought. If you don't allow it on social media, what would be the purpose of reforms? Well, thank you very much. You have watched another broadcast of Real Turkey Channel presented to you by Atilla Eşilara and brought from Istanbul. Please stay home and stay healthy. Goodbye now.